First, I'm Diane Obeid, and it is really such a pleasure to be here. And this is my first time doing this with Pineapple Support. So forgive me if I mess anything up. So just please be patient with me. And I would love it if y'all could introduce yourselves as well, just so that I can have a little background and insight into everyone, if y'all don't mind. I'll just start with who I see on screen. And Chrissy, can we start with you?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
I can, yes.
Perfect. Okay. So I am Chrissy LeBlanc. I have been in the adult entertainment industry for about 8 years, mainly camming, but I've branched into a lot of different things. I do clip sales, premium social media. I'm currently a Key Club ambassador for ePlay, which is a live streaming site. I do cosplay stuff and some other things. I think that's all you need to know for now.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I'm gonna mess your name up. If you will pronounce it for me, please.
It's Araneae, but everyone calls me Ari. I'm Araneae Mactans. I've been in the adult industry for about 14 years now. Started out mostly doing sort of adult modeling, fetish modeling. I'm a dominatrix and session wrestler. I can be found on Clips for Sale, on all the clip sites, most premium social media channels, and just lurking around the internet, really.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ari. And Alex.
Hello. Yeah, my name is Alex. I've been in the industry for 12 years, mainly on the business side. I mean, everything is business, right? If it's even in front of or behind the camera. I work with traffic in marketing, affiliation marketing, and right now I'm at Seven Veils. It's a social media marketing agency specialized in adult entertainment. And I also, on the other side, I was camming and escorting.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Ebony, I'm not
okay. Hey, everybody. Hi, I'm Ebony Mystique. So I am coming from the mainstream adult virtual world. I've been in the adult industry for 2 years. Since August of 2019, we're coming up on my 3-year anniversary. It's been amazing. And I'm exclusively contracted to browsers and a Playboy centerfold. So that's been amazing. So that's what I'm doing. And I'm super happy to be here today.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yay.
And Samantha. You're muted.
Hi, how are you guys?
Hi.
Thanks for having me today. Sorry I'm late. Technical difficulties.
That's okay. Would you mind just introducing yourself?
I'm Samantha Lexi. I've been in the industry now, I guess, for like 2 years. I started with OnlyFans and making clips on ManyVids. And then at the beginning of this year, I signed with Motley, so I started doing like mainstream porn. And yeah, here we are.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Prince Jean. Not hearing anything. Not
One
seeing.
second. I'm
okay.
coming. Me and Leah are having a slight discussion. Forgive the complete mess what you're about to see.
That is okay. It's okay. If you're not comfortable turning your camera on, you don't have to.
Nope, I am. I just look a complete mess. I've just come off of a plane. I've been running through an airport, so I might look a bit sweaty and pissed off. So my name is Prince Jean. I'm based in the UK. So I am a cosplayer. I actually started out as a professional male model. And then I moved into mainstream. So I started out with production companies in the UK and then expanded out into Europe. Decided that I wanted to have eat my own cake as well. So I decided to also do content productions. You'll find me on ManyVids and you'll probably see me all over the internet doing God knows what. And yeah, be excited to be part of the panel.
Thank you so much. And I apologize for Jean and not Jean. If I had known you were in the UK, I would have known better. So
You're all good.
thank
You're all
you.
good.
Is there anyone that I've missed? Okay, I wasn't sure if everyone is showing on my my screen here. So today I just want to first of all thank all of you for being here. I really, really appreciate it. And so today I'm just going to sort of talk about porn and how it can be educational. And I'll start by sort of discussing, in 2021, there was a national survey done that was discovered that porn was sort of the primary educational source for youth between the ages of 18 and 24. And that was even above and beyond asking their partner. However, here in the US at Boston University, there is a professor, Emily Rothman, who has referred to porn as not only profitable entertainment, but also fantasy and not rooted in reality. I don't agree with her. So she is working on a program that regarding porn literacy, which I do think is really incredibly important, but I just feel like maybe she's attacking it from the wrong angle. So I think it's really important that we do talk about how porn can be educational and the ways that it currently is. And with the shift in society right now, the way that it can become even more educational. So the first things that sort of come to mind for me is it can normalize same-sex relationships, safe sex, all forms of kink, and just several other things that aren't being taught in schools or in homes. So I think one of my first questions that I would love to ask all of you is, in what ways do y'all think that porn can educate? And just sort of chime in with whatever comes to mind. I would love to hear it.
So I'll start off if I'm able. I feel like everything you said is really prominent. You know, it does kind of visualize the art of sex and kind of accept different genres and different likes and different, you know, responsibilities, I guess, even with sex, you know what I mean? So, I mean, homosexuality, pansexuality, the world has changed, and it's not, I don't think it's so much change and the fact that things are going on. These people, everybody's been kind of on this. There's been kind of times where, you know, my rights, you know, so I think homosexuality and has been around forever. It's just now I think people are more accepting it through music and I don't know, mainstream TV even. So I think it's been more accepted. So but definitely coming into the realm of like OnlyFans, and now where even I guess civilians see that sex is lucrative, or you know, filming sex, you know, so is lucrative. So just really important to keep in mind the safe sex practices with this whole thing. Kind of educating our peers about safe sex, you know, being tested and what that would look like as far as like time framing and, you know, symptoms even, and just like sexual health, you know, for women, you know, pH balance, and for guys, how many people have erectile dysfunction? And it's like a lot. So just kind of sexually educating people is really important, I think.
I can jump in on this too. I'm coming from a cam background, so I interact with a lot of my fans, probably a little bit more than most mainstream people do, although that's definitely changing, especially with OnlyFans and other premium social media sites. But because I get to interact with my fans, you know, just about every time I'm performing, I get to have those discussions with them. And I've always had a very non-judgment like zone in my cam room. I've prided myself on that. No matter what people are into, as long as it's not like illegal, harming someone, like as long as it's not one of those categories, like even if I'm not into it, I'm not going to shade you for it. And I have enforced that with other people in my chat as well. If someone tips to see my feet, that doesn't necessarily turn me on, but I do show my feet, and I'm totally comfortable with that as like a kink with my fans. And I've had other people in chat go, ew, why would you want to do that? Like when you could tip for something else to see. And other people now will chime in and stick up for the person that requested it because they know that that's how I want my room to be. And I know I've gotten a lot of really positive feedback from my fans with that, like feeling comfortable with sharing what they're into. And I've had a lot of people sharing their like sexual journeys, like coming into their own and embracing their sexuality just because they've been given that safe environment to be in. So I know like CAM especially can create a very safe environment for people to share that with. People can get that through private shows. They can get that from escorting. They can get that from looking at the porn that they choose. But yeah, it all helps reinforce that it's okay and their desires are normal and they're not alone. So I think it helps a lot.
I think
Sorry.
it's, sorry, please go.
No, it's okay. You go on first.
Oh, okay, thank you. Just quickly, because I think I really love this topic because it's really hard actually to say if we can define if porn can educate, because somehow, and I'm pretty sure that since it's just the beginning of this talk, we will go through that deeper. But in my opinion, of course, porn can educate, for example, as you were saying, for gay sex, for most of, I mean, generations are changing, but back then, when I was a teenager, for gay sex, the first, even at school, they would not talk about anal sex, or I didn't know that it required that amount of lube. It would have been nice to tell us. Now, the educational part is the point where it gets me in this talk, because we are working with entertainment. So I'm not sure if we can consider 100% that people can educate themselves on sexuality and sex intercourse through porn. And I think it's kind of our moral duty to also work on that kind of balance, because we are entertaining people, but at the same time, it's a movie. I mean, there is a script.
I'd like to also echo Alex's point a little bit there with regards to the difference between porn being entertainment and it being it not necessarily being that educational part. But I also see the value in it being having a knock-on effect of being educational. And that wholly brings me back from my experience being much younger, and you know, when the internet was being this whole new thing, and the only porn I could ever see was top shelf stuff, and everything was covered, and you could just see the head of this gorgeous woman on this magazine. And of course, being, you know, in that sort of pre-pubescent sort of stage in life, I always assumed that everyone grew up to be this glamorous, amazing goddess of a woman, or this, you know, six-pack hunk. I never, and of course, reality never sets in, you know, the same way. You see mothers and parents and older siblings and everyone else, and they're all lumpy in different places, and, you know, they're bigger, they're smaller, they're larger, they're, you know, their asses are bigger, their tits are bigger, anything like that. So I think porn had an educational effect for me, because I got to see the whole variety of what people in essence evolve into when, you know, when they go past that puberty line. And it isn't just fulfilling a role of being, you know, this hourglass shape and this, you know, dark brunette with glowy skin and big lips. It looked like everyone, and there was every possibility of person out on the world, on the internet. Now, I know that within the sort of paper media aspect, that is, you know, kinks and things like that, and different tastes have become a bit more apparent. But the educational aspect, where I didn't feel like I was ever going to reach or aspire to be this goddess, I found on the internet that everyone is different, and that's okay too. So I feel like I found that to be very educational, and I learned a lot that, you know, we can all be accepted and beautiful and loved and sexy at the same time.
Thank you, Ari. I really appreciate that. That sort of takes me into my next question. I do just want to touch on real quick. Ebony, you mentioned something that I thought was so really brilliant when you talked about how music is even playing that role in kind of normalizing, like when you hear, you know, music and the gay people in music and in the industry, the music industry, and children at very young ages start to look up at these musicians and what they're doing. So I really love that they're using their platform to normalize so many things that weren't normalized 20, 30, even 5 years ago, you know. So I think that's really a great point. And Ari, you know, for you to sort of push us into the next topic here. So my next question is kind of, in what areas do you feel like porn is helping people to feel more represented? I think we've already touched on that a little bit with some same sex and, you know, consent and just different types of kink and things. But what about some other things? I mean, Ari, you mentioned like different shapes and sizes of people. And then Chrissy, you talked about how people were tipping to see your feet. So that's something that maybe several years ago, people would be like, why? And even now you're kind of experiencing a little bit of that. So in what other ways are we seeing different populations and different people represented? Just chime in whenever.
I had a similar experience to Ari coming into this industry as far as body sizes like went. When I initially started thinking about getting into the adult industry, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to do a lot of work before that. I got to work out. I got to diet. I'm like, I got to get my shit together if I'm going to be in this industry. And then I attended an AVN expo as a fan, actually, at first. And that's where it kind of opened me up to like, holy crap, like the people in person look very different than they do like in the magazines and on video. And that was wonderful to see. And there were all different shapes and sizes of people. At the BBWs had the biggest line of fans waiting to take pictures with them. And I was like, holy shit, good for them. I'm like, okay, well, maybe I don't have to do as much work as I thought. And I've heard a lot from fans too about how they appreciate that. Like I know that there's a couple that cams, and the guy is not like very, like, it's just friends of mine. The guy is like not the most attractive looking guy. He has like kind of a dad bod, a little bit of a beer belly. And he's like, my fans actually love it because I look like them. And it gives them hope that they can be with a hot girl like me, you know? And so I have a similar experience with the art. Like it made me feel a lot better, and it made me love my body a lot more. I've gotten compliments on parts of my body I never looked twice at. So porn has definitely made me feel more accepting of my body and normalizing like what my nipples and what my vagina looks like versus what you think the ideal might be. So yeah, I'll hand it off to someone else.
I love that. Thank you. Prince John, I think you were going to say something.
Yeah, just to chime in on sort of like this, I would say that something that I have seen is the fact that fantasy can be an element of reality. So what I mean is that the way in which we are conditioned to see sexual interactions does usually tend to come from a very heteronormative perspective, but due to the different type of people who are creating content, different type of people who are making porn, it reorients the way in which people see sex, because you're seeing some scenes where it might be more passionate and some brands will have more sort of like hugging and kissing. We know that role play is quite big and it's quite massive, and people who are seeing this are realizing that actually, how come maybe I can do some of this stuff, and having conversations with their partners in regards to, oh, actually, would you like if I did this and I did that? So also, I would say toys for guys, that cis men specifically, that tends to be a bit of a controversial one for guys, because we're sort of wired to see it as, we see ourselves as, you know, we have to have fulfilled certain roles sort of like within sexual interactions. And then when you're sort of seeing porn, especially people who are consuming porn and seeing, you know, that people are playing with toys and that there are different ways to do things, that it doesn't just have to be linear. It changes the way in which you sort of see sex in itself, and changes the way in which you even see it, or how you interact with other people, if you have a partner or not. So I think it's quite powerful from that type of element as well, in terms of opening people up to the possibilities, and then the fact that you can have that experience with sort of like different types of people. You don't need to sort of look like you're, you know, really tall. If you're a guy, you don't need to have like chiseled abs, or you don't need to have like a look like you dropped out a magazine to sort of have a good time and have a great experience.
Yes, Alex, I see that you have your hand up. Thank you.
Yeah, I think for about the question about representation, I really think that for once we need to be very thankful for all the platforms like OnlyFans, For My Fans and such, because it really helped and changed something. Of course, we cannot always blame the studio for producing something that is matching, you know, this famous offer and demand of the market. So sometimes even if the studios have a political position or even ethical values, and they still produce to fit in a commercial system, right? But still, I was very sad and annoyed. I come from a mixed family. I live in a mixed country, Brazil. So it's very annoying for me when some of in the past, I mean, it's changing very slowly. We need to recognize that it is changing, but it's still very slow. That when we received some scripts for some models, like the black guy is the thug and drug dealer in the movie, the Asian guy is always a bottom. And I know that things are changing, but it's really annoying. And thanks to OnlyFans and these kind of platforms, we see that the models really took the power on representation. So they could really be, for example, feminine and top for the gays, or not having to kill themselves at the gym with a super diet or anything, and just present themselves how they are, enjoying sex. And I think this is really powerful as a message, but also for ourselves, it really empowers the models. And I'm so thankful for this switch in the industry.
Thank you so much, Alex. I can't tell you how important that message is. I love that. Thank you for the way that you put that and the things that you said. Incredibly powerful. Samantha, yes.
I just going off of what Prince was saying, kind of like about how guys are usually kind of like embarrassed to have toys because it's like usually seen as like a female thing to do or whatever, like a feminine thing to do. Like on the other end of that spectrum, I feel like people I went to high school with, or just even like in my adult life, hearing people talk about like their sex lives and stuff like that. I feel like people, like, for example, like threesomes, like it's only socially acceptable or whatever. They talk about having a threesome with a guy and two girls, but like if it's a girl and two guys, then it's like, oh, that's like super slutty and like degrading, and like that's like not okay. But also, well, yeah, maybe it is degrading. That's, some people are into that or whatever. But like, say like, for example, a gangbang, like it doesn't have to be degrading or looked at that way. I feel like I've never done a gangbang, but it's like something that like I'd want to do, or it's like intriguing to me because it's like, I think it's like not degrading, because it's like, no, it's not all about the guys. It's all about me. Like everything is about me. Like, why does that have to be looked at that way? And then kind of going off of what Chrissy was saying, like, because I was camming like all last year too, I think it's kind of cool that people could be more comfortable about their kinks. Like I kind of dabbled with Findom because like Finn subs or whatever approached me talking about like calling me goddess. I didn't even know what that was. So I was like, you know, looked on porn. I'm like, what does that even mean? I was like, do you guys think I'm a goddess? Have like a braids in my hair or something like that? But they're like, oh no, we want to like serve you or whatever. And then so I looked into it and like I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of hot. So I kind of dabbled with that. But also, yeah, you could learn about kinks that like just see like a video and like, oh, I didn't even know I was into that. So I think it's kind of like educational in that aspect too.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. And, you know, I want to kind of piggyback off of what you're saying, Samantha, and Prince as well. When you talk about, you know, the women, and it's really all about the women, and how come when we look at those things, people are like, oh, she's so slutty or whatever, kind of takes me into the next question. So as society is changing, and we've sort of gone through the Me Too movement, and we're moving past that now into more of a women empowerment place, with women taking on these maybe kind of newer places and roles in the porn industry and kind of managing themselves and saying, not only here's what I'm going to do, but here's what I want to do. And that doesn't make me a bad person. What are y'all's thoughts on that? Do you feel like women are really helping to kind of change and redefine the industry?
Nobody's going to say it. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I know so many like strong women. I think through the years going to events like XBiz and AVN and Exotica and Why Not, I've met so many people in this industry, so many strong women too. Alex, Prince John, you guys are great as well. But for now, we're going to talk about the ladies. I know so many amazing, strong women, and I love the community of support that I have with them. I have friends in this industry that I can talk business with, I can talk sexuality with, I can be friends with, I can smoke a joint with. And I love having like girlfriends that are also like business minded and going after what they want. And I love seeing like friends of mine book scenes and start their own new companies and their own side hustles. I'm like, yes, good for you. So I think that like the female empowerment movement is absolutely like, it's kind of like revving everybody up, I think. And hopefully it's inspiring other people. I feel like I'm going on a bit of a tangent, but yes, absolutely. Women in this industry are kicking butt. And I think that it's like, it's fabulous to see.
Oh, you're muted, Ebony. I think you're saying something.
Lips moving. ASMR, I just see these lips moving. So anyway, just to chime in on that, I just feel like what you're seeing now, honestly, is what the women of the industry back in the day were doing, that were like really responsible and really serious about their brands, you know, like a Jenna Jameson or like a Pinky Triple X. It kind of takes you, it separates who is kind of doing adult for the fame or, you know, for the likes or whatever, versus who really are really trying to brand themselves and have like legendary status and longevity, just not about a check. So, or living check to check. So what I see now is just women who kind of see themselves in that position. Like, no, I want to be a producer. I'm a director. I'm not just a performer. I want to roll up in a double R like the company owner. So I just see that women are kind of waking up like, hold on, I'm not just a performer. I'm not just a mattress girl. Like, I know how to direct. I can buy a camera and roll and book a talent, you know, and legitimize it, or whatever that word is. Like, make this legit, you know, like I'm a brand. I'm a job, you know? So that's what I'm seeing. Girls just waking up like, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'd like to jump in on that one at that point as well, Ebony. That was a really strong point that you made. And I think it's fantastic that women are empowering other women. I spend a lot of my days with girls who wrestle men for a living. And when I got into that part of the industry, that side of the fetish, I thought it was going to be catty AF. I've worked in strip clubs and the hustle there is real because it's all managed by, you know, one person, and they're all pitting each other off against each other just to try and get that money. But at the end of the day, when I started building my own brand in the session wrestling world and the dominatrix world, filming my own content really empowered me to raise other women up. So now I also star in my own stuff that I create, but I also pay the girls I work with, or, you know, I hire the girls, but I pay them above what everyone else pays them because I want them to feel respected and to feel like I'm the one who's being honored here, that they will come and work for me. So I like to empower other women to see the worth in what they do.
Thank you. Oh, no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, especially about the part where like in terms of the strip club, there is like no women empowerment there at all. It's like I've worked in the strip club since I was 18, like waitressing and then dancing for so many years. And like I was like constantly bullied all the time. I felt like it was just like a continuation from high school, being like tormented all the time. And it's like, yeah, there's no women supporting women there. And I feel like even just like from like my many vids friends, like from, you know, camming and making clips and stuff like that, I'll like tweet that I need help with something like in one of my videos or editing or whatever. And then I have like 15 people that I don't even know that reach out like, hey, you want to send it to me? And I'll totally help you with that. I'm like, dude, I don't even know you. Like you're helping me. That's like so freaking cool. And like, I just did my first scene with, it was like a boy, girl. And I was like really nervous because I was just afraid that it was going to be like, kind of like the same dynamic like in the strip club, like working in person with other girls. And it was actually, it was so fun. Like I was like scared I wasn't gonna want to do it again, but it was so fun. And yeah, the girls are super nice. Like, oh my gosh, this is your first scene with girls. Like it's like the best with other girls because you know we kind of help each other. And I feel like yeah, the support in this industry is like I don't know, it's awesome. It's like you would think that it's not, but it's actually better than I feel like I've got support in my entire life. It's pretty cool.
Can I just mention something real quick? I forgot. One moment. I just want to say this. It also is keeping women safe. Like a lot of girls maybe have been escorts or maybe have some real bad traumatic experience being sex workers. So now you being able to make your money virtually and people able to see that kind of money coming towards you, you know, people accepting you as you are and being able to monetize off it also makes I feel like women like really eager to keep it going, like, and let's make this like, you know, let's keep this going type thing. So that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, definitely, Ebony. And I think COVID maybe played a little role in that as well, kind of pushing sex work into more of an online type of thing. And I just
Yes.
want to tell y'all really quick, my elderly mother lives with me. So she's from back in the days of like the Debbie Does Dallas kind of stuff. And she's this little Southern woman with this really heavy Southern accent. And so she knows, you know, that I'm a therapist and that most of my clients are sex workers and everything. And she will often say to, well, not often because I've kind of educated her, but she has said to me, well, don't those poor women get forced into giving blowjobs? And I have to explain to her, no, Mom, this is not what it is. People are not forced. This is a choice that people make. And so I'm really trying to educate her, even though she's just a little old, elderly Southern lady, that, you know, women make these decisions now. Yes, unfortunately, some people are forced into the field, but really it's just really it's changed a lot, and I love seeing that, and I'm really thankful that y'all have those perspectives as well. So someone,
You know,
I'm so sorry, yes, go ahead.
No, just to give an insight as a man, we can totally see that from an external point of view. It has changed. I've been in the industry for 12 years, and all these events are always such a good time, but we can tell that women are more and more empowered. Of course, there is still room for improvement because the society has to change even more. But it's really impressive and really good to see the level of confidence. So as Ebony was saying, if a girl would say, a woman would say, oh, I want to direct. Well, I feel that now it's more respected than if a model would have said 10 years ago, oh yeah, I would like to direct a scene or something, because I was very surprised by this industry when I came in. I thought it was more open mind, and I think now it is changing a little bit more. But I was surprised by the level of the manpower and the misconception even within the industry. And now really we can see and we can feel that women are more empowered, and the level of confidence is really, really nice. Just the simple fact that a model would say, oh yeah, I have sex for that's my work, I have sex, or I just had a gangbang because I like it. It's really, really nice to reach this level of self-confidence and auto-affirmation. I like that a lot.
Thank you so much for offering that perspective. Quickly, someone did ask in the chat, what do you think the shift What do you think will shift straight men's anxiety around using sex toys on their own or with partners? Any of you want to kind of respond to that? Yes, Ari.
From a woman's perspective, because I did glance at that question briefly, I saw it pop up. I would like men to know, or heterosexual men in relationships with women, I'd just like them to know that sex toys aren't the enemy. It's not you or the sex toy. Oh my God, both work really well. So you just gotta, I guess, grab the bull by the horns and grab that vibrator and go for it. Because at the end of the day, if your partner says, they might want to try it out or they might enjoy it, then give it a go. There's no harm in trying if you're both agreeable to it. But I think there's room for both in a relationship. It's not you versus the toy. It's both of you together, and it can be amazing. That's my 2 cents on that.
Thank you so much. And then there is another comment in there, and we'll get to that in just a moment, because our next kind of question may answer that. And if not, I'll get back to that. So when we talk about porn being educational, and the comment in there is kind of like, whether or not we think porn is educational, it really is. And so I lived in a Middle Eastern country for about 12 years where boys and girls don't even go to school together. They don't go to college together. They don't date. They can't be seen in public. And they certainly are not to have sex until they're married. Everyone knows the boys often do. They go out, they're sleeping around, whether it be with other males or females. And then you kind of wonder, well, who are these females if the females can't even leave the house? But they're certainly not taught about sex in schools or anything like that. And I know that a lot of other developing countries sort of experience the same things. So their primary source of any kind of education, and not just teenagers, but even adult men and women, is pornography. So when we talk about it being educational in terms of safe sex and boundaries and things like that, what else do you think, if we're thinking on the very bare basic levels of how porn can be educational, and what could be added to it to make it as really educational as possible? What are y'all's thoughts and ideas on that?
From my perspective, from camming, I try to be as honest and talk through the process as possible. It's a fine line because you don't want to destroy the fantasy, but I do want to educate people as well. I'll get, suggestions of oh, try to put the Hitachi on your nipple and see how that feels. And to me, that's a silly suggestion, because that's not going to do anything for me. But to them, that's a serious suggestion. So I'm I've tried that. That's not really my thing. I've gotten other suggestions where I'm no, that's not what I like. That might be what you've seen someone else do, but I like to be touched this way. So just things like that. I try to just educate people that not everybody's the same. Not everybody likes the same things. People ask me, and I'm also, I cam with my partner and with my girlfriends. So I do couple shows and girl shows and threesome shows and stuff as well. And so we get a lot of couple questions too. And again, there's a time and a place for it. When we're hanging out and chat in the cam room, or if it's in an OnlyFans DM, it's a lot easier to be honest. When we're in the middle of a show, yeah, it's sexy time and we're doing the fantasy thing. But I do my best to educate people on at least what I like, and talk to your partners, ask them what they like, try things, things like that.
I just want to ask y'all real quick also. I had heard in a previous panel, Sebastian Keys, I'm sure some of you might be familiar or know him. He had said something about how boundaries can change during production, but he sort of went into prior to the scene, someone will come up and say, hey, I sort of need to change that. In porn, if the actual act, the sex act is taking place, and in the middle of that sex act, the actor or the actress decides they don't want to do that anymore, they are going to change that boundary in the middle of the act. Do you think that would be a good way that people who are watching could be educated about using their voice, empowerment, changing the boundary? Or do you feel like it would take away from the excitement, the entertainment?
Well, I'm not sure exactly where. Maybe there might be just something that needs education in itself as far as content creation versus mainstream productions. But I know every mainstream production set that I've been on, we do a boundary checklist. It's very, very tedious. It's very you have to be comfortable. It's very consensual. We go through every type of damn near position that you can go through and make sure that everyone's comfortable before we even film. We even do this before we eat lunch, you know? So I think it's maybe about consistency, maybe. I'm not sure, but every mainstream production, since I started porn, there's a boundary checklist that every performer discuss with each other, and we follow, we talk about that.
And Samantha, you have something to add?
Just going off on that, I do mainstream porn as well, and we always do the boundary checklists and stuff like that. But I watched Prince did a seminar on consent with XBiz that I watched that was really great, because although those boundaries are established, like one thing that I remember that I think that like everybody should know, even like people in this industry, is he said that consent is like an ongoing thing. It's not something that's static. So it's like, even if like they said like, oh yeah, I want this, like prior to a scene, or like even sex in like your personal life, if when it comes down to it, if like they start seeming uncomfortable or whatever, like just instantly stop, because you know, like they might have thought that they wanted that, but that could change. That was like one thing that from like, it was
Exactly.
a long thing, but about consent, but that was like one thing that I thought was like super important. There's no like, oh, but you said,
Consent.
like, you know, like just because she said that, or he or she, or they change their mind, then like instantly that's, you know, that's off the table.
Yeah, sex should be consensual at any time. If there's any, they even have it where if you're rolling, you have like physical taps, so you don't. We do that. It's like if you have a physical way that you could cut the scene because we're rolling, because you're not uncomfortable, do it.
Like,
so we even established that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a marketing person, I would not recommend at all to use it this moment during a shooting to educate, because it's completely killing the experience and the vibe of the viewer, right? He is being entertained. So of course it's great to take advantage of this moment to tell him, but it's just like if you're watching a movie, I don't know, whatever Bruce Willis movie, and just in the middle of the movie there is, okay kids, but don't do that, don't play with guns or anything, you know, it's not the time and place. But then what would be great is if you can get access to this footage, then to do something in parallel to explain, you know, oh, this happened during the shooting, it was an amazing scene, I had a lot of fun, but we had to reframe the consent at that time because the situation evolved, or something more educational, but to do it in parallel, because during the scene, plus the actors are focused and they're in their characters, right? So I think I wouldn't use that as an educational point.
Oh, I think that is such a great point, Alex. And I know, Prince, you're getting ready to say something. So I just want to say real quick, Alex, the way you kind of bring it up, you know, like if afterwards or something, I wonder if like after the credits roll or whatever, if the actors and actresses could kind of be like, hey guys, you know, here's what actually took place or something. Maybe something along those lines. Do you think that would help at all? Or it could be educational, or would it just sort of...
That would be so awesome. I think it's brilliant. It would be great, really.
I think that would be so cool. Yeah. And it would also kind of humanize everyone who's within the production as well. Prince, I'm so sorry. What were you going to say?
I will try to keep it succinct. As Samantha, thank you, mentioned, I have spoken on this topic at length. I've actually written an entire thesis on intersectional consent and creating safe environments. So I will try to not go off. But the point that I was going to highlight is that at the center of this is ongoing communication. So having the lines of communication open and having that constant dialogue. because even if you shop with somebody 5, 6, 7 times, you don't know what's happened in that person's life. And when things happen, it does change how we perceive ourselves, how we perceive certain situations. Some things can now be a trigger when it wasn't before. So having that line of communication as a constant means that even if I've done mainstream and content, and definitely on mainstream, the good companies anyway, most are very, very good with the sort of boundary checks. With content, it does tend to be more of an issue, which is why you need to be a bit more careful with sort of like who you work with and make sure you're having those conversations sort of like proactively. But yeah, just having the lines of communication open, so that if there is any issue sort of like on set, that can be communicated and that you feel empowered to be able to do so. So to anybody who's listening, because I know that that's easier said than done. And sometimes you can have an idea in your mind that if I say this now, I'm sort of ruining the vibe or I'm killing the energy. No, if something doesn't go, if there's an issue, it needs to be communicated. And it's also about conditioning yourself to be comfortable to have that conversation. Because if you keep silent, you're training yourself to be silent in the next occasion and in future. And then you can end up in this cycle where your boundaries are sort of like being pushed and you haven't really communicated that to anyone. So people don't know, inexperienced people who want to deal with you and the people who are, quite frankly, will humanize you, will always be happy to have that conversation and want to do things that make you comfortable. And the best shoots are always consensual anyway. You're not going to get a good shoot if people are uncomfortable. You're going to see it in the body language. You're going to see it in the face. It translates in camera. So yeah, just keep the lines of communication open. I will.
Thank you so much, Prince. Thank you. Ari, yes.
I just wanted to pop in just briefly to maybe ask, would there be a potential way that the actors, actresses, entertainers could educate themselves more on what to do if their boundaries are pushed, or what to do if they consented then they want to take back that consent? For example, would you be in a scene doing something, be happy with it, and then all of a sudden don't want to do it anymore? Could you then say, well, hold on, how about we stop and we do this instead? Could there be some sort of play on that where the scene continues, slightly changes to whatever the person who didn't want to further their consent with that particular point, then they take the forward role in doing something else? Would there be something in, because I know you do like boundary checks in mainstream, would there be something that there could be an alternative to something? Maybe there could be some education that way that would continue a scene without breaking the flow.
That's a great question, Ari. Who's got the answer for her?
Yep. Again, I will try to not go off on this. A part of this can be mitigated in the pre-production communications. So having a conversation ahead of time to openly say that, hey, if we're in a situation where I don't feel comfortable or you don't feel comfortable, how do we approach it? So you can try to have that conversation up front. I do appreciate that sometimes you're not going to think of every scenario, and sometimes you just feel something's a little bit off. Inexperienced producers, especially people who have shot a lot, they are quite familiar with these situations. Like, these situations aren't unique. These situations do happen quite frequently. Maybe it's more that we don't necessarily have these type of open discussions where people are open and say, actually, this happened on set. I wasn't necessarily too comfortable with it, because sometimes you can be worried about, oh, will I not get future work with this particular company? I know that is something that a lot of people have opened up to me about. I've had hundreds of DMs of people who have told me that they've sort of felt that, but they didn't want to communicate it because they didn't want to sort of sabotage or be seen as sort of like a nag. So yeah, you can have conversations up front, and also creativity creativity. The scene doesn't need to stop. It's more that if something is an issue, then you omit that particular part of the scene. That doesn't necessarily need to disrupt the entire production. It could be that you just put a different spin on it, or you just cut out a certain part of the scene, but most of the scene can go ahead and continue. So it's doable. I mean, I've seen it done, I've had it done, I've helped other people do it on a content production perspective, on sort of for brands and things that I've directed for as well. So, but yeah, at the heart of it is communication, which is why it's so important to make sure that those lines are open. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult if that conversation isn't had.
Thank you so much. Alex, were you going to add something?
Yeah, just quickly, I think absolutely, as Prince was saying, the communication is the key, of course. Obviously, I totally agree with that. And I really think that just the way Ebony was describing, just to have all the maximum consent questions and everything before the scene. And I think that's why projects like Pineapple Support are so important, because before getting in a production, that's why it's very, very important for people the models, the performers, to have it in mind what they're going to do, etc. Of course, we cannot foresee the whole situation, because a word, a smell, a different look can trigger something in the middle of the scene and then change the whole situation and the boundaries. And I completely respect that. It's just that I think that during the production, it's very, very stressful to have this kind of conversations. And obviously, if the model is not comfortable anymore, he, she, it needs to stop and to reset the boundaries. This is the main priority. There is no possible argument against that. It's just to understand that the whole situation is really stressful. And that's why I think the state of mind is very important before shooting, because when something like that happens, it's also very hard for the male for the person with a penis to keep the erection. Sometimes if you start to go on, okay, why should we do that? Could we do it this way? If it takes a little bit too long to agree on the new setup, then it can just create a whole different atmosphere and put more stress on something that should be a little bit smoother if it was communicated or foreseen, if the production was dedicating more time to talk about it.
Thank you. Someone also said in the chat regarding the panel earlier about an intimacy coordinator that's on set, and that they would also be very helpful in that. And kind of to your point, Alex, about how the man would have to maintain the erection. What if, going into production, if they're like, okay, here's everything I consent to, I'm fine with all of this. And then in the middle of the scene, they need to switch that up. Would it be possible to ever have a plan B in place of like, yes, I've consented to all these things, but hey, if something changes, can we just switch it up to this position or this style or whatever it might be?
Of course, yeah, eventually, I mean, with communication, everything can be adapted, of course, absolutely. Communication is the key for sure.
Okay, thank you. And Samantha, yes, you have something to add.
I was trying to go off of what Alex was saying about like, it's kind of hard to, like, yeah, generally you have a plan like on set, like, okay, we're gonna start at this position and do this next, like kind of like have a game plan. But I don't think that like it's too much work or something, or it should make the female talent feel like it's like too much work, or it's gonna be hard for the guy to keep his erection or like redo it again, because sometimes that's what needs to happen. Like I think like Brazzers, like, and Reality Kings, mofos I've shot for are really great with that, because there's like a talent assistant for like male and female, and they're like pretty good at reading stuff like that. And I am like super new to the mainstream world, so I'm like 6 months in, and last time I shot for mofos, and my scene partners he had like a 13-inch dick, and it was like fucking huge. And like we first started, and it was supposed to be like a certain position, and like, yeah, lubed up, ready to go, yeah, we're all excited. And then we started, and then she like instantly was like, okay, cut. And she like pulled me aside, she's like, do you need to like warm up a little bit? And I'm like, maybe. And she was like, just so you know, like, don't ever feel just because you say that you're ready at first and then you started. And she's like, I could tell that like you are not, and that it's hurting. You're like super tiny and he's like super large, and we know that. So like, it's okay. But she's like, that's okay. Like, you know, he's been doing this a long time. He can like get the boner all over again, but just make sure you warm up, and the scene will be better, and it'll be better for the longevity of your career. And I feel like in your personal life, it should be like that as well. But she's like, I could like, she's like, that's why we have talent assistants, and like, especially for new talent, I think it's great because I guess you kind of do feel like, oh, I don't want to say something because it already started. And, you know, especially if it's POV, they don't want to do too many cuts or whatever like that. But she was like, it's okay to say something, because she's like, also translate on camera that like it's hurting you, you know, so that's all.
I appreciate that perspective, Samantha. I really do. Because like Alex says, you know, there is the importance of the man keeping the erection, but then as you point out, Samantha, he can get another erection. He'll survive it. And then there's also times too, maybe it isn't the woman who's being triggered. Maybe it's the man. And, you know, maybe he's the one who has to sort of change the boundary in the middle of what's taking place. So I think that's really super interesting. And I do think it's about time for us to wrap up, though, but I could just go on with y'all forever because you are all so incredibly informed and so educational for me. And I just really appreciate all of your time and all of your responses and everything that y'all had to add to this. And I really, really thank you all so much for being here.